Let's start it up. All right. Let me close mine out. You guys want to see my desktop? Want to see my dog? It's short, don't worry. He's a good dog. He's really cute though. He's mostly border collie, but he's not pure or anything. He's a mutt. We got him at the pound.
What's his name?
Simon. Simon the dog. So let me get that out of the way. All right. So I know it's a messy desktop. We want to open up Photoshop. So does everybody know where that is down on the dock? The blue PS? Yeah. Go ahead and click that for me, please. If you wouldn't mind. And Brenda knows this because she's had me a few times. But if I go too fast, if you're a little behind or you need me to show you something again, just please let me know. I won't know. I won't be able to read your mind about it or anything. So there's absolutely no problem with saying, hey, hold on, let's slow down a little bit. I will get you caught up. Try not to rush too fast. I have some handouts for you, but I wouldn't bury your nose in these. These are just sort of, I would say these are better for after class than during, but we're going to follow these fairly closely. Does anybody have any questions pertaining to the first episode, the first class that we had, or Photoshop Basics, I guess I should say? Okay. Well, if you think of anything, let me know. We'll get you caught up and reminded.
I did this Photoshop like before, long time ago.
Okay.
And I have hard time to catch up with that one.
Okay. Was it here that you had it, or?
No, maybe 5-6 years.
Not at this location?
Not in this location.
Okay. That's fine. Well, just let me know if you got any questions.
Right.
It won't be so bad, guys. Promise. All right. So, let's see. Do something here. Okay. There we go. So your workspace probably looks kind of like mine, I hope. Over here on the right, project windows. Does it look not at all like mine? Well, if the color is different, that's one thing. I have mine on.
I got a bunch of pictures online.
Well, don't worry about that, I guess.
And I don't have this space over here either.
Yeah. I think once we go ahead and open an image, it should. Stand by, let me know. So let's go ahead and open our first image, which is called Red Eye. It's going to be a red eye reduction tutorial. So let's go to File, Open. And you guys are going to surf to a specific spot. On the left side, there's a column. Okay, somewhat down the path of the column is DSADC, which is the server. Give me a second. Go ahead. Hey. All right, let's see. What can I do? You want to sign in into that computer first. It's DS class, both username and password. So we're just opened up Photoshop, and we're just about to put a file in. right. So let's do this. Let's go File, Open. And then, again, very specific spot. Yours is not going to look like mine, but it's okay. We're going to get there together. But you got to pay really close attention. On the left column, there will be one, there hopefully will be one called DSADC. Does everybody see that on your screen? Click on that. Okay, and then you want to go to Users. So double click on Users, not Users 2. Now I've got everybody in the system on here, but you guys should have one called DS Class, I hope. Is that so? All right. This is where we're going to be getting all our files, so I skipped over it. Yes, class. Inside that folder, there should be another folder called Photoshop for Photographers. Right? Everybody doing good so far? And we want to get this one called Red Eye 2. Please. Pretty please. You're lost? All right. Well, where did you get lost?
Photoshop for photographers.
Are you in that folder? You in Photoshop?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a picture of a little girl. It's called Red Eye 2.
Well, you still need to go to Photoshop for beginners or Photoshop for photographers.
So you're on this list?
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe?
Right here.
This is what it looks like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a folder there called Photoshop for Photographers. Okay. It is kind of in a weird spot, isn't it? I don't even see mine anymore. Oh, it's because it changed the alphabet. Okay, got it. All right, and then inside there should be a picture of a little girl, Red Eye 2, okay? And then all you gotta do is double click on that picture, and it will open it up in Photoshop. And now we're in Photoshop. How did everybody feel about that file browsing? Fun, right?
Yeah.
You know, do you guys use computers a lot, everybody in here? Yeah. There's a lot of file management when it comes to pictures and photography and photo editing. So I'd recommend get used to that. And, well, there's some tips and tricks I'm going to show you. At least on how to use the Finder in Mac OS. PC, you're all on your own. But as far as Mac OS, there's definitely some cool stuff you can do. Okay, this picture's perfect, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it at all. So as you probably all know very well, that the back of the retina in your eye, which is it's like the digital sensor, it's what's going to catch all the light, sometimes reflects that back out through the pupil, because, you know, it's like filled with liquid in there, it's clear, and that's how the light gets into our brain, right? That's how we see. And on humans, it's red. It's a red cast. You may notice on pets, it's what? Oh, you guys are quiet. Okay. Anybody have a dog or cat? Oh, you guys are timid today. Come on now. Nobody? We got a pet? A rat? Nothing? Gosh. Well, on other animals, they're different colors, like yellows and oranges and greens. But on people, it's red. Doesn't happen as much as it used to with old flash photography. This is obviously a lot of flash going on. It's not a good exposure, but that's really not why we're going to worry about it today. What we want to do is remove the red eye, okay? And there's a special tool that does that, and unfortunately, it's completely one-trick pony. That's all it does, but it does it very well. It is the red eye reduction tool. So first new tool of the day. Something also you might do, I did it a manual way with my zoom tool here, but if you hit Command 0, that's a little trick I like to get everything it's a fit on screen is what it is. It's the hotkey for fit on screen. Makes everything nice and big for you. What you're not zoomed in to where you can't see it all either. You can see everything, and you can see it well. Okay. Any questions on this so far? All right. Now let's look at the tool. So over on the left-hand column of our toolbar, right? Everybody remember that? There's this section of tools. We're gonna use this thoroughly today. This family of tools basically pertain to photo repair. So there might be a Band-Aid there right now. There might be any of these that you see here. These are the sub-tools. So hopefully you will remember from Photoshop Basics that for some reason Adobe is silly and they like to stack their tools on top of each other, make it really hard to see them and hard for you to find where they are. And so we are starting at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the 7th tool down. Now to access the sub-tools or the sister tools, I like to say, is you can either hold your button down on them or you can right-click on them. And you'll pop up a little sub-menu. In that sub-menu, I want you guys to click on Red Eye Tool. And once you've done that and used it, you don't have to go back over here and click these tools again. So sometimes I see people like they'll do it and then they'll come back and click it again. No, you don't need to do that. Once you've got a tool, it's going to be right here, and it's going to tell you, hey, this is the tool you're on, until you change it to another tool, okay? Can everybody see okay? Is it clear? There's not too much glare coming in today? Okay. And I wish it was a little bit sharper, but what are you going to do? As long as you guys are okay with it. So I don't want anyone unable to see. That would not be good. All right, so it's pretty easy. You just kind of point and shoot with it. Did you have a question, Brenda? Oh, you were just, okay. You basically just aim that crosshair right on top of the red, give it a click. Yeah, I know, right? It's like 5 or 6 minutes just to explain like a 10-second process, but hey, that's how it is. And that's all it really does. You don't have tools. You don't have any tools.
I have the tools, but I didn't see that one.
All right, well, if you count from the top, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A brush tool? Shouldn't be. Is it one of these? Healing brush? Okay, so what you want to do is right-click on that tool. Yeah, they share a spot. It's a stupid thing Adobe does. No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're on tool 8. Right-click on it. There you go. It is designed. Yes. What's not working?
It's not doing.
That's because you have a selection. You see those dotted lines there?
Yeah.
Command D. Yeah, that'll get you. At least we can see where it was, but sometimes it's only 1 pixel in size and it's like up in the corner and you don't know why you can't do anything. So whenever there's a selection, you're only going to be able to work inside that selection. Actually, let me throw out a tip. This is a good teaching point here, because this happens all the time, happens to me all the time. But I've learned that most of the time, I would say like 90% of the time when I get stuck, it's one of 2 things. You may want to take this note because it's not in the handout, and this is good stuff. Okay. The first one is if you are unable to do any kind of process. You're trying to use a tool. You know you got the tool. You're clicking where you want to click, and nothing's happening, right? So the first thing I want you to check is what layer are you on versus what layer do you need to be on. Are you on the right layer, essentially? So go down in the layers, especially when you're working on something where you've got a lot of different layers going on. You may be on the wrong one. it's easy to do. You're on the one that you used last. Sometimes if you hit undo, it'll change what layer you're on. You'll go back to the layer you were working on. So all kinds of ways it can get you there. So make sure you're on the right layer, because you're not going to be able to erase something that's on a different layer. They're totally different places. And you can only be on one layer at one time. Layers are kind of like monogamous like that, you know what I mean? And then the other is make sure you don't have anything masked. Make sure you don't have a selection. Now, so all these three tools right here are your selection tools, and we talk about those in basics, and we'll be using some of them today. So if you've got, and they're very easily put in place. Anytime you see these lines, these are the marching ants, right? And they're great. They're super useful. But when you're using them, you can only do stuff inside there. It's not going to go elsewhere in your picture. Okay? And a real easy way to be sure you don't have a selection made, if you definitely don't want one, is to hit Command D. So on a PC, that would be Control D. Command D. Space Command. I think there's only one M in there, really. But so now I have two layers. But that, I think, will help you a lot. Helps me a lot. Now, then there's other reasons you could be stuck, but a lot of times it'll pop up a warning for those. Like if I try to use my clone stamp tool, which we're going to learn in a minute, if I try to use it without having a source point yet, it's going to say that. So a lot of times it'll pop up a window telling you, hey, this is what I need. But if it's one of those two things that I just talked about, it's not going to say anything. It'll just sit there till you get frustrated or figure it out. So hopefully that'll help. That's about all for this. It's okay if you haven't already to have a little fun really quick. I don't have a ton of time, but it turns red into black, so you can turn people into zombies pretty well with this situation. But it doesn't matter where your selection is. Command D will reset you good. Especially see how it's up here in the corner right now on my screen, up in here in the top left. If I'm working down here, which you're going to be doing a lot of photo editing, you're going to be in tight. Okay, I'm trying to do something, I'm trying to paint with my brush, and I can't do it. And I know I got the right tool. Well, it's because way up here, out of my field of vision, I got this going on. Oh, look, I painted up there. So Command 0, Command D, now I can do it. Okay. So, the next thing we're going to learn is how to close a file. We don't need to keep this open. You can have a lot of files open at any given time. You can have over 61 windows open. No, I'm kidding. Really, I think it's limitless. But I don't know if I would recommend you push the limit, because it's just going to slow down your computer the more that are open. It's kind of like typical stuff. But Photoshop can definitely have. Don't be afraid to have 5 or 10 open. It's not a problem at all. You'll know if it's hurting your computer, or not hurting, but you know what I mean. Stressing it. Okay. So let's close this, and when we close it, we're not going to save it so that the next people can use it. So we're going to go to File, Close, and Don't Save. Right? And now we're ready to open our next file. And the next file is going to be some photo retouching. This one's fun. So put on your thinking cap. I'm not going to say that. But you're going to get to do a little. You're going to get to do a little bit of your own aesthetic here. So when it comes to photo editing, there's trends. There's some things, but they're not so much hard facts. A lot of it is your own personal artistic taste. So the one we want to open, we're going to go to File, Open, and then we're going to go to one called Unedited Image 1 is the one I want to open here. This wonderful lady. and just double click on that, and you should get this photo up. And I just want to, okay, good. Nope. All right. So I don't know who this is. It's just somebody we found online. So I'm going to hit Command 0. You know what I want to get? There is a, I feel like there's something that'll, when I hit stuff on my keyboard, it'll show up on the projector so you guys can see what I'm typing. That would be a nice addition. So now I've got her nice and full-sized. And a couple things that you want to do when editing a photo. One of which is to kind of prepare a lot of people, and this is what we're going to teach today. Again, there's different ways, is to make a copy of your background layer. So you have an unedited version at the bottom always to go back to. There's several ways to copy a layer in Photoshop. There's like 3 or 4. But my favorite, and the only one that you really need to know, is a hotkey, and that is Command and the letter J, J for Juliet. Command J, and that will copy your layer for you. But it's an old-fashioned kind of concept where you save the original just in case. Plus, it's good you can compare back to it. And basically, you just leave that background layer down there, kind of on its own. And I'm going to reset my workspace just to try to make sure. I want it to be just like you guys have it. So, does it look similar now or not? Is this sort of what you guys have over on the right side?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's look, while we're here, let's look down on the layers. Does everybody have 2 layers now?
Yes.
Is everybody's top layer highlighted? I mean, it's like in gray.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? Back in the day, several versions ago, it was like a nice light blue. Adobe is just like trying to be hard, you know. Like, it's not, its interface is not user-friendly. I mean, they could use a lot more color and a lot more contrast and stuff. Everything they've got is like low-vis camouflage. It's really hard to tell what you're doing sometimes. But the layer you're on will be the one that's dark. Like that. Final Cut like went the opposite way. They went from looking all like steel and silver like this to like nice and colorful and big shiny buttons and like clearly marked stuff. I mean, like, who wants that when they're using a program? So now I want you guys to think, and I'm going to ask a couple questions. So, is this a terrible photo? But is it a great photo? Could it be better? Okay, so if we're going to change one thing, because like there's a lot we could work on. There's a lot we will work on, but I want you to think, my personal mode of editing, like my workflow, is to go from general to specific, to go from broad to narrow. So I try to hit the big stuff first, the little stuff later. It's probably all due to my fine art training, but different people have different ways, but this is, you know, the way that we teach here. So that considered, you know, if you could only change one thing about it, what do you guys think? What would you change? Okay, that's good. Anything else? What's off about it? What's off about everything in the picture? You're close.
Color.
There you go. And what about the color specifically? Again, you know, sometimes people are intentionally trying to get that, but it's too what? Yes. Yes. Does everybody see that? Or you may like the yellow, but let's just pretend we don't want this yellow, right? Yeah. Now, how many of you guys have done adjustments on photos in Photoshop before? Anybody?
Just class.
Okay. The rest of you guys have never done it? Ever? Okay. Well, it's a lot easier now. It's a lot better to use them now. In the past, you basically had to do an operation and you guys do not need to follow along. I'm just going to demo. You would go up here to adjustments, and then you would do your adjustments, and then it was like a step in the process of your editing. And to change it or undo it, you would have to go back to an older saved version, or undo, 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 Command Z, a bunch of times. Now, an adjustment can, if you choose, it can live in a layer on its own and can be revised infinitely. So it's pretty awesome. So, like I said, in the old days, you could go up here to image adjustments. But we're not going to do that tonight, but just so you know, they're up here. There's also some autos, which aren't bad. If I did auto color, I guarantee you. Let's just look. What did it do?
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to see that. Those are the answers to the test. But so where we're going to get our adjustments, such as the color cast adjustment, is over here in this window called the adjustments window. So I want everybody to find it. It should be next to properties. They work hand in hand, these two. Basically, the adjustments is where you pick which kind of layer you want to create, and then the properties is where you put in the, you control the settings of that layer. Okay. Any questions? Everybody with me? I'm not going too fast? Okay. So without even using any tools yet, we're going to do some global adjustments. I call them global because they affect every darn pixel in the thing. When we get in here in a minute and we take her freckle off and stuff, that's narrow and specific, but global is everything. So there's lots and lots of different ones. We're going to look at several today, and then there's some we won't even look at all. But the one that's going to help us correct her appearance best and diminish this yellowness that we have here is color balance. And it's represented in a graphic that looks like a couple of scales, like justice scales. All you got to do is give it a click, boom, and then I want you to look down in your layers window. What do you notice down there? Yep. And a new layer appears where in the stacking hierarchy?
On top of the other one?
It does, but specifically what other one?
Last layer?
Yeah. Well, or not even the last one, but the current one, the one that you're on. It's going to always be right above where you are. So if you have 50 layers and you're on layer 50, you're going to stack one right above the last one on the bottom, not the top. They don't go to the top unless you're at the top. So just something to keep in mind. That's always how they work. That's where they pop out. Okay, now we can actually start doing some adjustments up in here. And we're going to do those up here in the properties area here. Now, you're going to see this repeated many times in this class and in Photoshop all the time. Photoshop likes to divide up the pixels inside the image into groups, 3 groups. Is anybody familiar with these already? Maybe? Might have heard them? Nobody? Ooh, you guys are quiet, I'm telling you.
We're learning.
I know. Well, there's shadows, midtones, and highlights. And you'll have to bear with me. I work in a lot of theory to the class, so there's going to be a lot of lecture and talk. But hopefully it helps. Hopefully it's cool with you guys. Because I'm going to do it anyway. But, so most of the time, midtones are probably 80% of your image. So we'll actually look at this in a little more detail in a minute. But midtones are most of your pixels. Shadows are the darkest of the dark, like the darkest 10-15%. And highlights are the brightest 15%, okay? So I usually, again, going broad to narrow, let's do midtones first because most of the pixels are midtones. Then you can also adjust the other, but it's going to specifically adjust certain pixels. And what are we adjusting? Again? Right. So, obviously, this one here, yellow and blue, we don't want to go towards the yellow, do we? We want to go towards the blue. Look how much that changes it just right there. You want to see just how much you changed it? Anybody know a way? Any guesses? Anybody remember hide and reveal layers? Okay, no? Down in your layers window, to the left of every layer is a little eyeball. Remember that? Or does that ring a bell? And then the top one, you can turn it on and off, and you can do this. There's other ways to do this too. It's more advanced. I don't know if you may have seen it before, but have you ever seen when people are editing a photo and they've got like the original and their current side by side? You can do that side by side too. Remind me at the end and I can show you. But I don't want to get into it now because it takes like 10 minutes to get set up. But for now, sort of like the poor man's version, you can just hide and reveal the layer, and you can kind of see what you changed. It's very awesome. Okay, but I want you guys to adjust however you feel. Go ahead and play. Play with all of them. Most of them you're not going to want to change too extremely most of the time. But in this picture, it was obviously way too yellow, and that's kind of why I picked it. I just found this on the internet. I don't know who she is. She doesn't know she's in class, but what she doesn't know isn't going to hurt her much. She's insta-famous. But there's some other things that we'll do with her too. If you want to switch to the others, the shadows or the highlights, you can do that right here in this little menu. But your midtones are the main thing. Anyone have any thoughts or questions? So I'm actually gonna completely break from the handout order, and we're going to open a different file, and we're going to keep her open. We're not done with her yet, but we're going to open another one because it's going to allow me to sort of segue into teaching you a little bit more about histograms and levels. So we'll leave her open. We're going to work on another one a little bit, and then taking what we've learned from that one, we're going to apply it to her. Sound good? Okay. So let's do I know it's your favorite part. It's definitely my favorite part. You kidding me? Oh man, I love it. File, open. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Hey Siri, will you open that file that I want you to open and find it for me too? Well? No? She didn't even respond. Got the cold shoulder. The one we want is orangecast.tiff. Sorry. Oh, my Siri.
Hey, Stevie.
All right. This is not an Apple sanctioned class. Now, obviously, and you can tell by the names, like kind of a giveaway, right? It's too orange. I think this was the Bell House. But we're going to look at a couple other things before we actually start changing it. I want you to do this for me. Go up to Window, because just a quick review, these windows over here, these are called the application windows, right over here on the right. You know, the layers window, the properties window, etc. There are a ton of different windows that you could have out if you choose. You can have them all out at once, but then you know, depending on how much screen space you got or how many screens you've got on your computer, you could run out of real estate. So it's sort of a balance between the two, and that's why you don't have all of them out at once. And when we want to bring out right now, you get them all from the Window tab, okay? We want to go down to one called the histogram, and click that, and then it's going to pop up your histogram. And histograms, they're kind of cute. They're fun, you know. Oh, did it pop out the navigator too? Okay, well, I'll talk about the navigator in a minute as well. I love the navigator. So, I'm going to make mine, make it bigger. Won't let me, will it? That's not cool. So in your histogram, I want you to do this. Do you see these 4 parallel horizontal bars. That's sort of like your little file or menu button. Okay? And go to expanded view, please. There we go. It gives us a little bit more to work with, not a ton. And so there's a couple things that we can talk about here. First off, it's showing us colors right now. Let's go to luminosity. There. Now, does anyone know what luminosity is? It's definitely related, yes. So it is basically showing us, it's taking color out of the equation and it's computing values. It's computing overall how bright or how dark is this pixel. Regardless of its color, all pixels have light or dark. So this is kind of a lot of painting and fine art reference here for you. But that's just kind of how it is. That's how it works. It's the way of the world, man. So like it's showing us this. No color, but you know, it's calculating how much is bright white like this, how much is dark black like that, right? And it is displaying it in a graph form. Okay, so let's look at the histogram itself up here. So what's going on here is left is dark, right is light. Right? Does that make sense? So in a minute, we're going to do an adjustment of just these and kind of inspect how that is going to affect things. So higher the peaks, the more you've got. So all this stuff right here, these are all these rich browns. So this little peak here is the jet blacks. And that's probably the green of the plants and down in the fireplace. And then this is all that darker orange. And then we don't really have too much that's on the brighter side till we get to the very end, and then we've got like extreme brights. So a bell curve would be high contrast, like a U would be high contrast, and then like a hill shape would be low contrast. It's like mostly midtones, not much low, bright or dark. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of.
Hard to follow.
Yeah, I mean it's a simple graph. Just depends on the photo. I would recommend y'all just turn on the histogram sometimes when you've got different photos open and kind of see what's going on in them and see if you can kind of see what is representing what. I don't personally, and I don't recommend like looking at the histogram for your adjustments while you're adjusting. I would just eyeball it. Do what looks good to your eye. And I mean, you can tell it's too orange. You don't need a histogram to tell you that. So, but it's fun to kind of look at them because that's how the adjustment tools work. So you kind of got to understand, you know, it's like you kind of got to understand inches or millimeters and stuff, even though you understand, oh, that's longer than that. But how do you actually measure it incrementally? Okay, enough blabbing here. See that little exclamation point in the top right corner? That's significant. Anytime you see that, it's not necessarily bad, but it's something to take into account. Does anyone already know what that means? What does it mean?
Caution.
Well, yeah, but caution about what? What it's saying is that there are pixels in this that are whited out. It means like they're further along than 100%. They're so bright it can't even show them how as bright as you shot them. So essentially overexposed. If it was over here on the left, that would mean underexposed. It means like your darks are too dark. Now, what's too dark, right? I mean, like we're not going to get into that, but it's just saying that you're blowing it out. It's the same as, you know, speakers, or anyone ever recorded on a microphone. You know how it like turns red when you're too loud. You don't want that. No, nobody knows.
Yeah.
I'm failing on analogies today, man. I'm not doing so good.
This may not make any difference, but my colors are inverted here. So when you look at the histogram,
Your colors are inverted on your image?
no, on the histogram.
On the histogram.
Yeah. So
Yeah, mine are too.
from your histogram right now, the black is the white on mine.
Oh, I'm not sure why it's doing that, but it shouldn't. As long as it's the same shape. Is it the same shape?
It is the same shape. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure why it's doing that. That's interesting. That is interesting. go to your colors. Does that look the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, color's a little bit off.
This is a more complicated, and I wouldn't worry about this stuff down here, the numbers, but your colors histogram is obviously way more specific. It's going to show you where the red, the green, and the blue are going to be. So in RGB mode, I know there's a ton of theory, but in RGB mode, right, everybody knows RGB, right? Red, green, blue. So every time you've ever looked at a screen or a computer or a TV, what you're seeing is a combination of a red, a green, or a blue light lighting up. And somehow you can get yellow by mixing red and green together. Don't ask me why or how, but that's how it works. So you've only got those three. This is showing you how much of each are being used. And not only how much is being used, but where. So vertically, that's how much. So a good amount of red in the midtone spectrum, and we can see that in here, right? A good amount of blue in the shadows. You know, your blue is strongest in the shadows, almost no blue here in the middle. And then, as you can see over here, mostly yellow and red in the highlights, okay? But that little caution is just telling you, whoa, you're maxing out over here, man. Okay, now let's actually do something to change this. So we'll leave the histogram out, so we can see it. I'll talk about Navigator later if I have time. It's cool though. And let's do a new adjustment layer, but we're not going to do color balance yet. We're going to do my favorite, levels. How many of you guys do photo editing on your phones or your iPads or anything like that very often? A little bit? Anybody do Instagram or anything, or no? Well, you can hear the crickets chirping, guys. All right, so y'all are just like, get on with it, man. Okay, so levels, it's the second one here. It looks like little peaks, right? Does everybody see that one opened up in the window? All right, so does everybody know what to do in there? Okay, I'm going to show you. It's actually more complicated than we really have enough time to get into. So I'm not going to show you everything about it, but I'm going to show you something. So basically, you've got these sliders underneath, okay? And as you may have guessed, the three different sliders are as follows from left to right: shadows, midtones, highlights. Now, when you move them, you affect the intensity. So just go ahead and drag the highlights back and forth and back and forth. You don't necessarily have to. Well, I look at the picture, not the graph, and then I look back at the you know, the graph to kind of see. Oh, that's what that did. Okay, so it basically affects the range. This is affecting the range. It's compressing or narrowing the range, but you don't even really have to worry too much about that. Just kind of focus on what it does. Now, when you're doing that and you're moving them from the sides, you're going to get a lot more stark and extreme adjustments. If you drag the middle, okay, a little bit. What are we trying to do to this one? Anybody remember? What were we getting the warning for? Right. So that means we probably want to do what to the highlights? Brighten them up, right? No. We want to dim them down. So notice what happens when you move the arrows. So that's the first thing. That's the first part of the levels. And then you've got this other slider down here, which is also really important because it allows us to do something. And you kind of see what it's done to your color histogram over here too. That's kind of fun to watch change. Don't worry about the streakiness. It just kind of does that. It's digital noise and stuff. The strip down here is your contrast, not your gamut, or your gamut rather. So your brightest brights are represented by this. So if you turn that down, you will do exactly what you need to do in this case and dim down the intensity of those brights to where they're not totally whited out anymore. So I'm still getting a warning though. Which isn't exactly good. Yeah, it's not looking so hot. There, that's... And they're still pretty extreme whites. And you obviously don't want to turn them down too dark because that just starts to look awful. If you bring these in too far, you get really grayed out. You know, very neutral. And it's okay, but that's the thing. It's going to bring me back to theory, but, you know, black and white can be gorgeous. It doesn't have to be boring. Color is a luxury. You don't need it. It's an icing on the cake, but, you know, think of like Ansel Adams or something. You can have a masterpiece in black and white, no problem. But what do you need to make black and white interesting? Value, dynamics, value. Difference between your lights and your darks. If you narrow these too much, you don't have that value. It's like lizard vision or something. I don't know. It's not exciting. So now we can tackle our next problem, if you will, with this photo, which is color cast. So to do that, we will go back to adjustments up in our adjustments window. And this is the cool thing is you can stack these. You can have as many of these adjustment layers as you want. You can have tons of them. So the next one that I'm going to do is the color balance, those scales. And I'm going to do some adjusting to try to start with the midtones again, and I'm going to try to take out yellow and red, right? Add in blue and green. Probably not too much green, but definitely blue. And again, you can edit stuff till you're very, very, very aged. I mean, you can spend time and time and time and time on it. It's like anything. It's like working on a painting. Sometimes you just got to know when it's done. I'm not here to tell you when that is, but today in class we won't have a ton of time to spend on it. But you could keep going with this. You could push it really far. This probably isn't the blue ribbon photo worth spending all that time on. But okay, questions, thoughts, concerns, even just a chat. Oof, man.
With the editing and then looking at the histogram, let's say at this level.
What's the, sorry?
The histogram
Uh-huh.
right now.
Yes.
What does that tell you exactly about the balance and colors?
Well, it's actually really simple. So on every graph, you've got an X and a Y axis. Well, most graphs. The X-axis is horizontal, the Y-axis is vertical. So let's talk about the Y-axis first. Y-axis is frequency. It's how much, it's the amount. So high peaks of blue, high peaks of red, that means you've got a lot of red, right? So the higher, the more. The lower, the less. Then left to right on the X-axis, that's how bright or dark they are. So that is, I can show you. I can change this real quick, give you a good example. All right, so that was initially, that's how we've changed it. So we've moved stuff away from the edges more towards the center. That's usually a good thing, Keeps anything from being highly overexposed or highly underexposed. So blues are most in the shadows right now, okay? But if I change that with an adjustment layer and I change it severely, I could probably get some, see, now the blues are somewhere else. And if I do that again, if I do it even more, see how it's changing it? I mean, it's making it horrific, but it can be done. So that's that versus that. And if I went ahead and brightened that image up, I would have even more blue on the other side. So there's ways to kind of move stuff around. But I wouldn't try to force anything at the same time. I mean, if your photo doesn't lend itself to having blue highlights, you saw what it looked like when I forced it. It didn't look good. You kind of want to work with what you've already got a little bit, you know? At least I would think you would. Does that help answer the question, or does that make sense?
Yes.
It's basically how much and how bright what it is. And this is just general. This is like, it doesn't matter what color it is. It's like, how bright or dark is your picture, right? A dark picture will be a lot over there, you know, so. But this is photo editing, you know. One time someone asked me, it's like, what's an ideal histogram? There's no such thing, you know. It just depends on the photo. Does that make sense? There's no right or wrong. Well, there it is. All right. Let's go back to her. Let's do a levels adjustment on her. So let's go back to adjustments. Huh?
How do we get back to her?
Oh, okay. Do you see these two tabs up at the top of your screen?
Oh, I see.
That's how you navigate between files when you're working in Photoshop. I'm not going too fast, am I?
No.
Okay. We probably will take up the full 2 hours because honestly, this class could be 5 hours. There's a lot to teach. So let's do a levels adjustment. So again, the peaks. And so what do you think? We do have a warning here. I just clicked it. Her darks are a bit dark. So if I drag this, did everybody see where I'm at here? Dragging that up. See how that kind of brightens up the darks? When you get into Camera Raw, there's lots of different things that will adjust this. You're going to encounter a lot of dials and buttons and bells and whistles. Some will be called black point, shadows, fill light, okay? But they're all kind of based on this simple system here. And honestly, I apologize, I'm making it way more complicated than it needs to be. You really just, you know what looks good with your eyes, just, you know, you can just eyeball it basically. And she doesn't really need a ton of levels adjusting, honestly. I'm going to just bring down the heat a little bit on the brights. Okay. Now, does anyone have any questions? All right. So one other thing that I'll show you. We've talked about how to affect value and contrast in the levels adjustment. We've talked about how to affect color cast in the color balance adjustment. There's another one I'd like to show you. Go back to the menu and we'll do one called Vibrance. There's also hue and saturation, but we'll do Vibrance. It's in the top right corner. And this is the color knob on your old TV set, right? This is how you can pop color. So, I like to pop color. I don't like to do too much, but I like color when it's there. Notice that's a little too much, right? She looks a little burned. So you don't want to go too crazy with these. But I like to pop them a little bit. That's me. I like biased. Any questions? Okay. So, would you guys, let me ask you this. We could go one of two directions here, really. Do you want to learn more about these global edits and things dealing with color and general appearance and brightness and darkness and things of that nature? Or would you rather work on some more narrow fixes like essentially airbrushing, right? Like photoshopping, like how to take blemishes out, repair damaged photos, and that kind of stuff. Anybody have a preference on that? Because I don't think we have time for all of it, but I can kind of focus. You want to learn like the
Yeah.
all right, we can do that. We can do that. We will do that. All right. So the first thing that I think we should do is we need to take all these levels adjustments that we've done, and you don't want to work on these layers. There's no pixels on these layers. They just exist as like an adjustment, as a change. They're not really there. And honestly, we could get rid of them now. I wouldn't recommend it always, but when you're satisfied with something, when you're happy with it, it's okay to go ahead and merge it down. You've always got that original down on the bottom. But at the same time, it's okay to leave them up and going. However, when you're working underneath them and changing colors, that can kind of get weird. Let me show you how to compress them and combine them, put them all back together again, like Humpty Dumpty. So let's select them all here. And you can do that by clicking on the top one and then clicking down on layer 1 and holding shift down while you do it, and then you'll get them all selected. Do not select your bottom one though. You want everything but. Everybody do okay with that? Okay, good. And then next, what we want to do is merge them together. So a couple places you can do that, but what I would do is just kind of go over here in this blank area where your selected layers are and right click. And then you want to do merge layers, the top one there. Merge layers. Okay, and now we just sort of simplified things, which you may or may not want to do. There are some, I want to see. Let me just show you how I can get, well, I don't have it on there, so I'm not going to waste the time, but it can get nutty with tons and tons of layers. Okay, so now we're going to actually use some tools to make some changes in her. So there's really not a ton going on. It's not a bad photo, but there are a couple of things about it that can be improved. Does anyone already know what those are? Let's zoom in a little bit and maybe then you'll see. So the zoom tool is the very bottom tool. Just some review. It's the very bottom tool. It looks like a little magnifying glass. Get that guy. And you don't have to zoom in super far, but maybe just like a couple clicks onto her face. What do you notice there? You're probably going to see it on your screen better than mine. Anybody know much about image compression? So anytime a digital image is created, anytime a JPEG is created, it is compressed and it sacrifices detail for smaller size. Can you see up on the projector or your screen better? Can you see some of these lines here? There's like these lines that aren't really there on her. They shouldn't be. They're these little squares and these lines. Does everybody see that?
I see it now.
You see it when you zoom in. It shouldn't be super obvious when you're zoomed out, hopefully. I want you to think now, how many of you guys have looked up pictures online and you come across some that are too small, or you try to blow them up and make them bigger, or zoom in on them and they just look horrible, like the Super Mario Brothers or something? Has that ever happened to anyone? You know, that's resolution. And the thing about resolution is you are basically, you get what you get in the beginning. You just start with what you have. And it's very, very hard to add any detail back in. You're kind of stuck with it. But there are some things you can do to kind of help, okay? Now, she's a little pixelated in here, a little more than I would like. And I can see those in here. I mean, I can see those little these little boxes. Now, there's several ways you can get rid of this. One is by doing a blur, but I don't want to do a blur. I will do a demo of a blur. You guys don't do it, but the blur is going to blur everything. I don't want to blur everything. So I don't want to do a global adjustment here, do I? It's not what I want to do. Yeah, let's do that. But see, like if I blur her, now it just made the picture look blurry, right? I want to keep some areas crisp. So we're not going to do that. But there's a couple other tools that we could utilize that do that. And one of them is the blur tool. And the blur tool is, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13. And there's several other tools that live there. There might be a little finger, or a cone, or the blur, which is like a little drop of water. That's the one we want. So, did everybody find it okay?
Which one, the blur tool?
Yeah. Yes? What's not working? Are you using it already?
Yeah.
I didn't say to pull the trigger, guys. Oh, you didn't merge your layers either. Yeah, you're on a layer with 0 opacity. Did you turn the opacity down on that layer? Yeah, you're on a layer that's invisible right now. You see this? You want to keep that at 100. Okay? Look how blurry it is there. It's totally working. You're just on a hidden layer.
Can you unmerge your layers after you merge them?
Nope. Only by undoing or going back to an older file. Yeah. It's essentially a one-way trip. I mean, you can. You just have to undo.
How do you undo?
Well, a couple ways. Go to Window, History, and then you see the history window there? You further up you go, the further back in time you go. So just start clicking on older ones and you'll go to them. Does that make sense? Okay. See if I go back 1. See, I got them again. Okay. But like the idea of merging them was just to simplify things. Okay. Don't turn your opacities down if you can avoid it. Okay, back to the blur tool. Okay, the strength of the blur tool is going to be determined by something called strength. Imagine that. So up here, you're going to get an integer, which is going to reflect how strong it's going to behave. 50%, well, that's half strength. Okay, I don't think you need to turn it up, really. It depends on the tool, and I'll kind of throw out a recommendation for these, just based on my experience and opinions. 25% is good. You're not going to see a whole lot of change up on my projector, but you will on your screen. And just kind of go over it a couple times with the mouse and go over those areas that look kind of pixely. But you don't have to go over everything, okay? You don't need to go, you know. I mean, just be specific with it. This is a smart bomb, you know. We don't have to blow up the kindergarten anymore. Couple things you want to bear in mind. You can increase and decrease the size of your brush. This is going to be very important for all the tools that we're going to be using from here on out, okay? So, to make the brush smaller or larger, you do two things. You can right-click and use a slider, or even better, get that other hand up on the table and get it up on the keyboard. And then the bracket keys are the funky parentheses that are just to the right of the P button. Everybody look at them. Everybody look. Everybody see them? See? I'm using the mouse left-handed. I'm using my right hand, so it's honestly kind of easier. But yeah, your other hand can help a lot over there. So the little one, the one on the left makes it smaller, the one on the right makes it bigger. Okay. You don't want to blur everything. Don't blur her eyeballs. You know, you want those nice and crisp. You just want to get rid of these little pixelations. Any questions? Now, if you wanted to blur out the background, see how it's got that kind of really ugly wood grain going on back there? I don't think it looks very attractive. So if we did want to blur that out, there's a faster way than using this tool, okay? You kind of got to make a judgment call as to like what's going to be faster or not. So if I did want to blur that background, I would select it, and then I would use that blur filter like I showed at the very beginning. That's taking this image in a different direction, though. And I want to show you guys some more specific stuff to work with. Yeah. When it comes to editing. Any questions before we go on, though? Okay. So we're going to go to File, Open. Okay. And we want to open one called Photo Restoration Example 1. It's a baby. You will have fun with this one. Did everybody find it? Okay. Double click that. I'm going to hit Command-0. I'm not going to worry about duplicating that bottom layer. But you do have a before and after here, which I like. So you can kind of see what an end goal might be with this, which is cool. I like that. Here on the left, of course, this is our original. So this is what we're going to be working on. And there's a specific tool set that we'll use here. They're going to be those relatives of the red eye tool that we were looking at earlier. So the first one we're actually going to look at is going to be the healing brush. Okay, so it's the second one down. It looks like a band-aid. There are two of them. There's a spot healing brush, and then there's a regular healing brush. Do your best to try to be on the regular healing brush. Not the top one, but the one below it. Okay? Regular healing brush. It heals. You gotta go?
Yeah.
Alright, man. Take care.
Thank you. I'll see you next time.
Oh, you're welcome. Alright. Now, I'm sure some of you guys went ahead and clicked. You know, what happened? Probably nothing. This is like the clone stamp tool. you have to pick a source. So basically what this tool does is it copies one thing from one place to another place that you tell it to. So you got to go inside and pick like a clean spot, essentially. So let's look in the background for a nice clean spot. So how about right here? This is nice and clean. And what you do with your other hand is you hold down the Option key on your keyboard and then give a click. And then you can let go. You're going to have to click the mouse. Hold down the Option, click the mouse. Please get used to that. All right, now go over the part that is rough looking. Whoop, I went too far. I went too far again. It's a challenge. Let's all do something else. Right click, doesn't matter where, just right click for me. This slider in the middle, hardness, turn that all the way down to 0, please. We want that low. That is how like fuzzy the edge is. And you're gonna probably want fuzzy edges for this. It'll look a lot better. Okay. And then I'm gonna go back in. So I'm gonna Option click. You're gonna have to do that over and over again. So just keep your hand on the Option button. There's no reason to take it off. And then kind of clean it up. Do you see the little crosshairs that kind of follow as you move your mouse? I'll take that as a maybe, a yes. No? You don't see them? Hello?
I'm sorry, what
Anybody here? Like, do you see the little arrow that, so when you Option click and then you hold the button down, you see the crosshair under my cursor? That's important. That's telling you what's being copied. So if I keep going to the right and I go over top of the baby, see now I'm copying the baby's head.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I only want to go that far, and then when I start to get that, when it starts to go over, I need to Option click again and then start in a new spot. It's all relative. It also will paint over itself, which you probably don't want it to do. Back. Okay.
Sunglasses.
Yes. I get those, yeah. You're welcome. Any questions? Just practice with it, but just be strategic, you know? Let me show you another tool real quick, unless anyone's got any questions on this before we go on. Okay. It's the spot healing brush. It's kind of like a cousin of this tool. It's this one up here on the top, spot healing brush tool. Okay, now it basically repairs, so this one you don't have to use the Option click. You don't even have to worry about it. What it does is it's different, but it's also cool. It is going to grab, it's going to look around just the outside of your circle and then like kind of pull it. So it's going to look around and then make whatever is inside like what's just around. So it's really good for some things, but it's also terrible for them, and the other regular healing brush is better for. It just kind of depends on what you're working with. So for this crack here, really all you got to do is something like that. So try that one out. It's got limitations like everything. Like this part right here on the top of the baby's head. Like right here. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm in the blur tool. Oh well. Well, what really gets you with it is the edges. See, it's good as long as you're inside something. But when I get up here towards the edge, it can see how it kind of gave him a wart, you know. So you kind of gotta, yeah. See, that didn't work either. Just experiment with it. I think I could probably talk it to death, and it wouldn't be as informative as you guys just kind of playing with it. But please, if you have questions, save them for later. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead and ask me. Yes.
How we can get rid of right here? If we put in the teeth.
I did not quite understand you.
Try to make one word. I think it goes down in the teeth.
Well, I would restart. Yeah, you're destroying the edges when you do that, so probably not what you want to do. Go up to File, Revert. Okay. So just get the damaged parts. When you go up towards the edges, I mean, these tools can be just as destructive as they are creative. It's not a smart tool. Where you point it, it's going to start to mush stuff together. Does that make sense? Like, it's not going to know, if you go over the eye, it's not going to know to preserve the eye. It's going to take the eye out. It's I don't know, just like a firearm. It doesn't care. You're in charge. So if I go over the eye, I just destroyed the eye. So with the spot healing, you want to stay away from edges. What it's good for, you see that spot right there? It's good for that. It doesn't do everything. Like this one would be a challenge. I mean, it can be done, but not so great. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or answer your question okay, or
yeah,
kind of? Yeah, there's no tools that just do it for you. Like click and let go and it's done. I mean, I blame the media. No, I don't really blame anybody, but sometimes it just appears like, I don't know. I've had people think that like I just press a button and my computer paints me a Photoshop painting or something, you know. It doesn't work that way. So we can work on this guy for a long time. Now, what are some other things that you may notice different between the left and the right here? What did they do here? Something we learned today. No. What's the difference between the left and the right? It's a big difference here.
Color?
Closer. But not the color. There's no color in this picture. It's gray. Huh?
I said true.
The left side is more than the right side. No? Nobody knows? Really? Come on.
Brightness.
There you go. But more specifically, there's a word. Instagram. No. Contrast. Value. See how much richer it is over here? It does appear that way, right?
Yes.
So levels adjustment could get you there, right? I want you guys to start looking for these things inside. You know, kind of got to think about it. It's like being a detective. What did they do to this? Fix it, right? Okay, let's learn the clone stamp together. And the clone stamp is a pretty fun tool. Everybody ready for it? Take a nice deep breath. Think of happy thoughts. Clone stamp's fun, but you've already learned the healing brush, so it shouldn't be too bad. So we want to go to File, Open. You can leave this guy open if you want to work on it any more later. We'll go to File, Open, And steeple is what it's called. It's a little church steeple. Steeple. So a file called steeple. Okay, now we're going to do two things here to this steeple, and they're similar. We're going to do them both with the same tool, which is going to be the clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool is probably one of the most frequently used tools when applied to a term that you all have definitely heard before, the term photoshopping. They photoshopped me out of that picture, man. Well, it's probably this tool. Well, it could be this tool. It's likely this tool was used. It's an old tool. It's a fun tool. It lives on your toolbar about there. It is the 9th tool down. It looks like an old rubber stamp is what the icon looks like. An old rubber stamp. All right. Now, this tool, whoa, it's huge. Okay. And it's also already copying something from before, so don't worry about that. Everybody remember how to make it bigger and smaller?
Yes.
This is very important. I want you guys to adjust the size. You're going to need to adjust the size. You have to.
Can you repeat that one?
To adjust the size? Remember how to do that?
I think that from the mouse on the top.
Oh, yeah, you can do it from the mouse if you prefer that. There's no problem with that. Just make sure you can do it.
Yes, I want to run from the top.
Okay, the P button. Look for the P button. Okay, the button's to the right of the P button. To the right of the P button. The brackets.
Right.
Is that working? Up and down? Left and right? No? Are you on the clone stamp tool?
No.
Is it making it larger and smaller? You're not on the right tool, buddy. You're on the pen tool. That's the tool you want to be on. Yes. Now try. All right. So, two things you can do with this tool. First one is copy things, duplicate things. And the second is you can camouflage things. You can Photoshop things out. You can make stuff disappear. Okay, so the first one is the easier, making a copy of something. It's quite a bit easier. We're going to make a copy of the steeple. Very much like the tools we were just using, you have to define a source point first. So you have to option click. So I'm going to option click on what I want to copy. What I want to copy is this church steeple right here. So I'm going to option click on the church steeple, right? Then I'm going to move it over to the left a little bit. Or no, you can move to the right, it's up to you. But we're going to make another steeple. So you can actually see sort of like a little preview it gives you of what you're getting ready to copy, right? Can you guys see that inside your cursor? And then basically from this point, you just kind of hold the mouse button down and just pretend like you're spray painting it on. So just hold that button down, hold the button down, and move your mouse down, and you'll make a copy of it until you get down to the roof area, and then you can stop. You got two steeples at that point. Did it work out okay? Yep. Anybody have any trouble? Okay, I'm gonna go on then. So you could do it again if you wanted to, up to you. But you'd want to define your source again, and then you can make another one, right? So it's very quick. You don't ever have to paint in something that's already there. You can make multiples of anything in the digital world. It's awesome. You can just go nuts with it. Okay. So we are going to open another file now. Or sorry, we're going to revert this file so we can camouflage out that steeple. We're going to take it off. So everyone, let's go up to File, and then down to Revert down there. And that has taken it back to its original state. So that's reverting. That is what reverting a file is going to do for you. Okay. I'm going to take it back to how it was when you first opened it or last saved it, whichever comes first. So now to camouflage this out, does anybody have any thoughts on how we might do that? No? Okay. Well, we're going to take the sky and we're going to paint it over top of tower. So we're going to source the sky. Now, does it matter where we get the sky? Does it matter where we pick what sky we get? Does it matter?
Something about the same height so that you get, as you go down, you're getting the same level.
There you go. Precisely. Very good. Yes. So it is very important where we pick. Because if we pick down here, that don't look right. Everybody, they're going to call us out on that immediately, man. They're going to know. So we want to start right parallel with it. So grab you a piece of sky, option click right even with the top of that cross there. Right at the top. And then just kind of start painting it down. I want to watch for the bricks, right? I don't want to get too close to the bricks. Let's kind of start scooching it down like that. How'd that work? Everybody do okay? But that said, you know, just depending. I don't know. We could try. I mean, I can experiment it. Like, I do think the healing brush is more subtle. It's more that you wouldn't want to use the clone stamp on skin where you would want to use the healing brush. If that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it works, but see how it also gives you that fuzziness that's kind of blurs the edge. So see that flare there? The clone stamp doesn't do that. But honestly, it's more of you don't want to use the clone stamp for this rather than you don't want to use the healing brush for this. Clone stamp definitely came first, I think. So yes.
This is off the topic, but I was wondering if there was any way you could go over the Lasso Tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me try to think of a good file to use for that. Lasso. Huh?
Curly hair? I know there's a white.
Well, that's got it. You remember that one, right? That's got its own
Yes.
fun built in. I don't know. How about this Will Wheaton picture? Everybody see Will Wheaton? Photoshop Will Wheaton? Because he's got the green screen on. He's got a nice edge there to work with. Command 0. Give him front square. And now we are ready to try to lasso him out. Now, does everyone have the file open?
Wait, well,
Will Wheaton, Photoshop Will Wheaton. Okay, now does everybody have it open? Okay. Can't see your all screen, so I gotta ask. Alright, so what we're gonna do to this guy, we're gonna try to crop him out from the background. The lasso tool is 1, 2, 3 down. Third tool down. There are several types of lasso, and we will look at them all. The first one is just a regular freehand lasso tool. With that tool, I want you guys to select it. You have to go around holding the button down and trace over the perimeter of what you want to cut out. It's not going to help you. If your hand shakes, you're going to get screwed up. It's not exactly precise. It's kind of a struggle, really. Challenge. Fun challenge. But it's a challenge. So that's how that tool works. Then you've got a selection. In the end, you're going to end up with a selection no matter what. You do what you want with that selection. You can modify it. They're modifiable, all that stuff. Really, the only thing I find it very useful for is grabbing stuff that's already by itself. So that right there that I just painted on there on a separate layer, it's already by itself, right? So I don't need to worry too much about I don't have to worry about the edge of it because the edge is already there. So I've got these two blocks on this one layer. If I want to just grab the top one, I can do that really quick, and then it like automatically adjusts. For actually tracing stuff and cutting stuff out, I don't use it personally. I use other tools for the cutting. I use it sort of for grabbing, like you would with a lasso, like segregating it from one side to the next. Now, the other lasso tool, the magnetic lasso tool, some people really like this tool. I hate it, but I'll show it to you. Some people really like it. Okay, it's the third tool down still, but you want to make sure you pick the one on the bottom, the third one, which is the magnetic lasso. It's got a little magnet next to it. Everybody see that? Okay. And with this tool, you can cut him out. Basically, you don't have to manually, you don't have to hold the button down the whole time. You click and let go, and then you kind of like let it inch across, and it kind of adds material bit by bit as you kind of go around. Okay? And it leaves those little points on there. You can force it to do a point if you click. It will go ahead and lay a point down. Now, wouldn't it be nice if these points were like save points in a video game, or like when a climber puts down their anchors when they're climbing? Okay, but it doesn't. It doesn't even do that for you. So that's kind of unfortunate that it doesn't, but it doesn't. If your hand slips, you got to start all over again. But ideally, you go all the way around him, and then back up to the beginning, and then you got a selection. Yes?
what is the command again to deselect?
Deselect all is Command D. D for deselect.
Now, what
Delta.
do you do with that? I just traced around it now.
Oh. All kinds of stuff, really. You do all kinds of stuff with it. I'll show you one. Go to Edit, Copy, click that. Right? Now let's go back. You want me to stop? What did you do?
I don't know.
What changed? What happened?
It's like got
Okay.
I was just going all over the page with it.
Well, escape is never a bad thing to hit. And then once escape has been clicked, you might want to hit undo, which is Command Z. Working with selections is huge. I mean, that's what allows you to separate any pixels in a photo from the rest of the pixels. It's the segregation tool. It's super important. So once you have something selected, go to Edit, Copy, okay? And then say I could go over here to this file, and I could say Edit, Paste, and now he's in there, and none of the green is in there. Does that make sense? So that's one thing you can do of many. So, but basically it just separates things.
Now, can you move him around once he's in there?
Heck yeah. You can do all kinds of stuff. I can flip him. I mean, I can flip the whole canvas. I mean,
Lasso's gone wild.
Yeah, me too, I can't get off.
hit escape when it does that. Now you can see why I hate that tool, maybe?
But I still can't move him.
I can't move him.
Well, you haven't copied him and pasted him yet.
Yeah, I did.
You did? Are you on the move tool?
No, where is it?
It's the very top tool. I'm sorry, I might have skipped that part.
Okay, he's moving.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You got to use the move tool for that. Otherwise, you'll just move your selection. There are probably 10, 12 ways to do selections. There's a ton of them. There's these three tools here. The marquee is the simplest. That's the one where you just draw a box. The lassos, we looked at those. And the polygonal lasso is another one. Basically, polygonal is connect the dots. It's good for straight lines. It's good for like buildings and stuff, right? And then the magnetic one that we just looked at. Then there's another tool which I really like. So I'm going to go back to the Will Wheaton photo and deselect him. This is the quick selection tool. So we go over these in the basics class a lot. This is a newer tool. It's fun. It shares a space with the sister tool, the magic wand tool. So fourth one down, right? Quick selection tool. Actually, I'm going to go for the background and not him, but really you could go either way. This tool, again, it's brush based, so you can adjust the size of your cursor with, who remembers, two ways. You can well, actually you can't right click on this one. So you have to use the bracket keys with your other hand. I knew there's a reason why I taught that. All right, and then you just start clicking, and it's pretty darn smart. It got his ear, but I can fix that. It also missed his shoulder. Is everybody with me on this tool?
Yeah, but it's not clicking.
It's not clicking.
It's not selecting.
Well?
It's on minus. Yours has a plus sign.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good. That's good that you noticed that. Look up here in the top left corner.
Okay.
You want to keep it on plus. This actually is what I was gonna say. You want to keep it on plus, and then when you do want to remove, when you do need to remove, like I need to get his ear on the right side here, right? So I'm gonna hold down the Option key. Option, think about it. Alt, Option, alternate. It can be used to do sort of like the opposite thing, or just like kind of an alternative function. So I'm going to hold that down, I'm going to grab his ear, and then I'm also going to grab his shoulder.
Option one.
Just Option. Option and click the mouse. It's just like holding down a different setting. Option click. It's never going to ungrab. Unless, like, selections are weird, you know? You can do that. If you hold down Option, you can do that. But like, whenever you've got stuff selected, you know, you're gonna, if I hit delete, it's gonna do that. It's not gonna delete the selection. I know it's kind of confusing, but to clear your selection, I'll say it, I said it once, I'll say it again. Command D, and you're clean. It's also up here, if you ever forget. All of that stuff's up under select. You can select everything. That's also Command A. Sometimes you want to select everything. And you don't want to sit there and have to use a tool. Just hit Command A. It's like, it's quick. Select all. Deselect, clear. Inverse, flips it. Although we don't need to right now. And then there's also Reselect, which is nice. So Reselect is nice if you've like got a selection that you're going to use and you like it. But then, you know, you do something else with another tool, or like there's steps down the road or whatever. And you do something and you lose it, and you can go up here, reselect, and you'll get it, the last one that you had again. So that's helpful. And you can even save selections. So you can do that way down the road later if you want. That's getting kind of complicated, but yeah. Other questions? We'll just do questions here at the end, or anything you want me to kind of go over again that I did before. Now's your shot.
I'll be taking the class again.
That's fine.
I'd like to.
I'll be teaching it again, I'm sure.
That's how I learned.
Take them as much as you want, really. We didn't even get to the curly hair on this one, but okay, just a tip here. If you would still like to work more with these selection tools, and I don't really think you can ever learn or practice too much with these, but if you were, you know, wanting to do more or had questions or whatever about these, I would recommend taking the Photoshop Basics class, because it focuses on that heavily. It's already happened this month. It happened on the 1st. It happened last Saturday. But there'll be another one in August. And if you can, I would highly recommend to take that.
You mean for all the tools on the left there?
Well, not all the tools, but the selection tools.
Oh, the selection tools?
Yes. Basically, these first 4.
First couple.
Yes. Have you had the Basics class?
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
It focuses on them, and they're important. They're really important, especially when you're editing stuff. Because a lot of times you don't want to affect the whole picture. You want to pick and choose what you're going to do, and it's a big way to do that. So, I mean, you know how we made the steeple disappear, right? But another way to do it would be to do this. It's not as good a way, but it's a way. You know, it's a way. It's gone. It's not like camouflaged out well, but it's gone, you know. I made it go away. So, I could have done a better job than that. I mean, but anyway. We could have filled it with love. We could have filled it with like a color. Yeah, color, man. Like that. Getting closer, but still crappy. But you get the idea. But these selection tools are super important because, again, they're what chop up the image. In the old days, film days, they had to literally use razors and scissors and cut stuff up. We don't have to do that now. It's wonderful. There's no reselect button in real life, you know. No undo button.
No, there's that.
And I'm going to leave you with that. Just think before you answer me now. Would you really want an undo button in life? Would that be something that you would want? Would it be a good thing or a bad thing to be able to just hit an undo button and go back a step? Because at first it seems like that would be a great idea. Just like, oh yeah, I would love to live forever, you know. But would you? An undo button for life. It's not possible to have that, but what would that be like? We get spoiled in the digital world, you know, because there is an undo button. So
Yeah, we do.
use it. I'm not saying don't use the heck out of it. I do. You know, who doesn't? But are there any other questions?
No.
No? You guys want to take a survey?